Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and we are continuing along today with our full mix breakdown, and we are diving into the vocal mix. We're going to be breaking down a rock vocal mix today, but before we dive in, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the vocal mixing process and really start to perfect your EQ strategy when it comes to vocals, then I have just the thing for you. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through how to EQ your vocals step by step to help you get polished and professional sounding vocal mixes without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and dive into this vocal mix here. So let me start, of course, by playing you the finished mix here, and we'll jump back over to a section with vocals going, so we'll jump back to the second chorus. In case you forgot, let me hit play here, and you can hear our finished mix of the song, and then I will solo up our vocal here, and I'll let you hear it with the reverb and without the reverb as well. But here's our finished mix to start.
But take 3 steps, and I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. 1 step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close.
You can hear it's a very clean sounding vocal. It's got some nice top end. It's still got some body to it. It's very even, but it also has that little bit of edge. It's a clean vocal part, but it has that edge, that kind of like breakup when you start pushing a little bit harder into a guitar amp. And that's what I like to have in a rock vocal mix. And that comes from the tools I'm using here on the vocal. So let's jump in here. First thing I'm doing, of course, is EQ. You can kind of see all the tools we have going here. And the de-esser is last. The first thing I'm doing is EQ. Let me pull off everything we have on the vocal here, and I will turn off all of our moves here. The first move I'm making on the vocal, of course, as always with anything when I pull an EQ, is a high pass filter. It's a higher set vocal part, so you can see our high pass filter is up quite a bit higher than I would probably normally have it. This is more in the female vocal range, where I would set a high pass filter up around 200 hertz here. We're at 209 hertz. So take a listen without the high pass and then with the high pass on the vocal.
1 step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. 1 step, and it's much too far.
You can hear it's not changing the overall tone of the vocal too much, but it wipes out all of that heaviness in the low end and in the sub area that we don't need in our vocal. We don't need all this stuff that's coming up down around 50 hertz here, or anything that's around 100 hertz either in our vocal. That's not going to contribute good energy to our lead vocal part here. It's really just going to eat up space, and it's going to end up fighting with all the other instruments that the vocal is trying to stack on top of here. Next move I'm making is I'm moving up here. We're at this yellow band. Now we're in the low mids. I'm pulling out a little bit of muddiness, some of the heaviness here in the low mids, 321 hertz. Anywhere on lead vocals, usually around 300, 400 hertz, you're going to have some muddiness, some heaviness. No matter if it's a male vocal, female vocal, you're going to always encounter some kind of buildup here. It's just the nature of singing into a microphone. We have buildup in the low mid here. So I'm going to hit play here. You can hear without the cut. I'll kick the cut in, and I'll boost it up so you can hear the frequency range we're ducking out here.
1 step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. 1 step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps.
Not making a huge difference. It's only 2.5 dB there, but it just pulls down some of that buildup there around 300 hertz, just to clean up the vocal a little bit, make room for all the other stuff we're going to add. Now, we've got subtle moves across the rest of the vocal here. The next one we're moving up to is we're pulling out about a dB and a half at 700 hertz. 700, 800, anywhere from like 500 up to about 1K is where you're going to get that nasalness on vocals, especially if they're set higher here. This is like I said, a higher vocal part, so we're going to have some nasalness and some buildup here in the mid-range. So take a listen without the cut. I'll kick it in, and then again, I'll boost it up so you can hear what we're pulling out.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps.
It's only a dB and a half cut there, and I've narrowed the Q a little bit as well to make sure we're not pulling out too much of the mid-range. But it actually feels like it balances out or redistributes some of the frequency, some of the energy in the vocal, because we have a lot of energy in this mid-range area, and pulling out some of that nasalness, some of that build-up there around 700 leaves more room for some of the body to stay there in the vocal, and it also makes room for the top end here. Now we've got 2 very subtle moves up on the top end here. I'm pulling out a half dB at 1.5K. This might be unnecessary, but it was something I felt helped the vocal down the line here. We're at 1.59K, and I'm pulling out a half dB, and I've narrowed the Q a little bit as well. So let me play without this cut. I'll kick it in, and again, I'll boost up so you can hear what I'm pulling out.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's
I felt there was too much energy at this 1.5K area, and you heard what it sounded like when I boosted it up. That's good mid-range, kind of high mid area that we need for the vocal to be present and to sit on top of guitars and keyboards. So I don't want to pull too much of it out, but just a touch back helped it sit better with the rest of the instruments inside the track. Now up top here, I mix this vocalist a lot, so I usually end up cutting around 4K here. Higher set vocals, you're going to have some trouble with the 4-5K area, and it's going to build up and get harsh. So I'm pulling out about a dB here at about 4K. So 0.96 dB at 3.98K. Take a listen without this cut and then with it, and I'll pull up this area so you can hear the harshness that I'm talking about.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. Whoa.
You can hear that's a crucial element on our vocal to make sure it cuts through the mix and sits on top. But there was too much of it there for me, just enough that it was kind of getting harsh and starting to feel pokey and brittle. So just pulling a dB of it out helped to smooth out the high mids and the high end of the vocal there. Moving on, next I'm pushing into one of my favorite compressors of all time, the FET Comp, or an 1176 style compressor. We've got the attack at 0.54 milliseconds, so medium slow for this unit, but still very, very fast. Release is at all the way up at 50 milliseconds, so as fast as possible. We're really going to work on this vocal here to make sure it sits right where I want it inside the mix. We're going to make sure this vocal is nice and even, 4-to-1 ratio, so not too aggressive with the ratio. And we're pushing up our input till we get about 7 to 10 dB reduction, and then our output is balancing our gain in and out of the compressor. So without the compressor, and then with.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close.
You can hear we're doing a couple things with this compressor. We're, of course, evening out our volume. That's what we want to get with the compressor. We want to pull the peaks down on the vocal and then bring up the quieter parts of the vocal. That's our compression, evening out the vocal so it sits on top of the mix. But with this 1176 style compressor, I'm also getting some character enhancement and some energy enhancement on the vocal. It helps me get that little bit of breakup that I talked about earlier that makes it feel like the vocalist is pushing harder maybe than they actually are. So take a listen one more time here without Ooh, excuse me, and then with.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps.
Something else that this compressor helps with is it helps to even out the frequency range of the vocal. So it does the evening work volume-wise, but to me it also evens out the frequency spectrum of the vocal. So it beefs up the bottom end a little bit, the low-mid area, and it takes care of the harsh highs. So it holds everything in place, whether something's pushing too hard or there's not enough of something. So it'll even all of that out to give us a good sounding vocal, both volume-wise and frequency-wise. Now, moving on the fat channel here, I did some more work up on the top end. These are, again, subtle moves, half dB move, and a dB move here. I'm pulling out a dB at 7K and then a half dB up on the super highs here. I'm going to AB this EQ all together for you because they're subtle moves. So we're only doing a dB and a half across this EQ here. There was a little bit too much harshness still up on the top end of the super highs at 7K, and then above that as well. And before I even pushed into the de-esser, I wanted to see if I could smooth that out by just pulling some of this out with a more vintage style EQ here. So take a listen without and then with. You'll hear it just rounds out our top end.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps.
They're small moves, but it rounds out the vocal on the top end. It makes it feel a little bit softer and smoother going up on that super high end there. Now, the last thing we're doing on the vocal, kind of aiding the EQ moves we did, is the de-esser here. It's not sounding too crazy as you hear. There's no S's that are really jumping out, but just putting this in, even as a safe hold, or just to tap those S's, helps to keep our vocal natural feeling as we pull it up and sit it on top of the mix here. So take a listen without the de-esser, and then with it.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps.
I'm using a multi-band compressor here. If you have a de-esser plugin inside your DAW, definitely reach for the de-esser plugin. I'm doing it on a single band here on the multi-band compressor, so we're only working on 4K and above. This lets me set where I want to compress and only do above that, so it's not like a wideband de-esser or anything like that. I've got the ratio set 20:1, fastest attack, fastest release, so kind of limiting style, and we're just grabbing those S's as they jump up to be too much, and then leaving the rest of the top end alone there. Last thing we have on the vocal is the reverb that I run on lead vocals, and this is the CLA plate reverb. So you've probably seen this before if you've watched any of my videos. It is the flat plate is what I start with inside of Studio One here, just the flat plate setting on the room reverb. You can see it's a very flat plate here, and all I do is I dial the length up to about 2 seconds, so it's about a 2-second plate reverb, and then a 152 millisecond pre-delay. And what that pre-delay gives us is it makes sure the reverb happens after our vocal. So we hear our lead vocal, and then our reverb comes after it. This makes sure our reverb doesn't sit right on top of our lead vocal, and then we get, extra low mid energy or extra mid-range energy, and it muddies things up and messes with the vocal mix that we already have. Post reverb here on the send, on the effects send, I'm running an EQ, and this is just rolling off the low end here. I don't want any of the super lows and even much of the low mid information coming through on the reverb, because again, that's going to build up and give me more muddiness on my vocal. And then I like to roll off some of the top end just so it's not too harsh or the S's don't come through too much from the reverb here. Let me hit play without the reverb, and I'll kick it in so you can hear what it sounds like with the vocal, and then we'll tuck it back in the mix.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too.
You can hear it's a very pretty sounding reverb, very smooth, and those roll-offs help to make sure we're not getting too much of the top end or too much of the bottom and the low mid frequencies coming through on our reverb. Let's throw it back in the mix here, and I'll do a before and after of all of our plugins on the vocal here.
One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. Way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step, and it's much too far. I'll take 2 steps. Way too close, but take 3 steps. And I'm into your arms. I'll do all it takes to get to your heart. One step. And it's much too far, I'll take 2 steps. We're way too close, but take 3 steps.
Mixing vocals to sit in a rock mix, it only takes a couple steps here. Getting our EQ set right, so rolling off excess bottom end, pulling out any muddiness or nasalness in the mid-range here, making sure it's not too harsh up on the top end. And you see we did that later as well by pulling out some of the super highs. Our compressor, I love the 1176 to add energy, to add character, and also contain our volume and frequency range here. And then, of course, throwing a de-esser on to make sure those S's and T's don't pop out. And the final touch is our plate reverb to give it length and to give it depth in the mix. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you are ready to level up your vocal mixes and really start dialing in your EQ strategy on vocals, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and you can download it below to start creating more professional vocal mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.